we continue to journey together through the Lent. And we know that every Sunday brings us closer to the big Sunday, the Easter Sunday. So literally from today, just 3 Sundays. So next Sunday we'll have communion. So that's a reminder of resurrection every time we do it. And the week after, Palm Sunday, and all the joy and the palm and the dancing and all the praising aspects. And the Sunday after will be Easter Sunday. And our text today is part of the lectionary that wants us to remind ourselves that God's grace and work on the cross was not vanished. So this is a story that's well known. I do not like to preach about stories that everybody already knows. And all of you, if I ask you, you will write me maybe a good sermon about it more than what I'm going to share with you. So I say, what can I bring new? Everybody knows the story about the prodigal son. Even it was made in many ways, in many movies, in many dramas around the whole world, with different touch of what everybody wants to take from the story. So today I ask myself, like, everybody wants to know the hidden code behind any stories. Like when we read fiction stories, we love the metaphors. What's the hidden behind it? We see people, but we know the writer is playing with these characters, and every name has a meaning, and every action has different meaning. But I wonder about how many times we lose, because we know that there is something hidden, we lose the simple meaning. Because we want to go what's behind it, but we forgot that's actually even the symbol, the direct meaning, could has a good meaning. So how many times we jump into the story about a father and 2 sons, and we jump into the father is God, and this is the good believer, and this is the bad believer, and we know that God's grace and who is really in the church and who's out of the church. But we forgot, why can't we take the story is about a family like you and me? Like a person trying to take care of his own children, and just try to understand the dynamic. And understand in the story, there is a lot of culture misunderstanding there. You have to live in this time of 2,000 years ago of the Middle East to understand there is few words there, but really it has a lot of culture meaning in the story. But just to be in the context why Christ is saying that, I imagine as Christ, if he's with us today, he will say, guys, let's turn on YouTube, and I'm going to share this video with you about the clip of 2 people, 2 sons and his father, and read it, listen to it, and then come back and talk to me about what did you understand out of the text. So who are the audience in this? In this conversation, I'll say the church in Chakabi will be the people who are listening to the YouTube video. But at this time, the lesson was actually happened in the beginning. That's why our reading starts from verse 1 to 3. Talks about the tax collectors who are really being very grumpy and not happy. About the Pharisees and the teachers of the law were not happy about Christ is sitting with the tax collector, the sinners, all these bad people. So here is the context. Why are you sitting with these people? If you claim to be one of us, either a Pharisee or a teacher of the law, your action is not matching your career. So this is the context. This is the audience. This is where the story is coming out of this. The Pharisees and the teacher of the law are challenging Christ about your action is contradicting your title as a Jewish teacher. So Christ actually said 3 parables. Not only the lost son, but if you go back and you read, you will find there is the parable of the lost sheep and the lost coin, and the last one is the lost son or the prodigal son. So in the first 2 stories about the lost sheep and the lost coin is the seeker is very eager about going and try to find what is lost. If it's either poor, helpless animal, or just a matter of something like a coin that could be made from a silver or a gold or whatever. So we see the action that's coming from above, from a person of power who can go around and look to find what is lost. But this is the longest parable that Christ shared with us about the lost son. And he takes us the story about human being there. Life seems good. We can understand from the story, they are well established financially. They have servants. They're not living a poor life. So this is the people we can say maybe born with a golden spoon in their mouth. Maybe we can say that. So things on the surface looks perfect, great. A family that you may really wish you could be part of this family for the wealth and the life that looks stable. Good family, father, 2 sons, servants, everything's around them. They have many people they can order and control. And out of nowhere, the younger son came and asked his father to take his inheritance. I know that many of us came from different traditions. I myself came from an Egyptian, Middle Eastern, Christian, but generally Muslim because of the big umbrella was about how children behave toward their father or mother and what's expected, what's shame and what's honor. And I know that many of us here from African tradition, white European tradition, maybe native, we all came from different traditions. So I don't know how this will really come to your ears when you hear that. If your own son come to you and say, give me my inheritance. Maybe I know, maybe some American will say, they actually have none. I raise them, I take them to college, they are independent enough, they go and take care of themselves. Whatever money left is for me, right? That may be just normal. Maybe I go the extra credit, maybe I give and help them some, but it's not the right to say, give me my inheritance. Maybe this is our modern American way of understanding that. But if you go back 2,000 years, this is the most offensive statement that a son can say to their own parents. Because inheritance happens naturally, and to the oldest, not to the youngest. When the father deceased, normally the older son will step in as acting as a father. So in other words, like if a son saying that almost saying like, I hate you and I cannot stand seeing you alive. I cannot even wait to the natural process where a father is gone by death and then naturally the inheritance comes to you. So the first thing is for this audience, they are shocked. And also, he is not the oldest, he is the youngest. And the story goes on, as we know, he took his money. But you should wonder about this dad is not acting as a normal father in the context of his days. That dad should be angry. He should throw him out of the house. He should say all the bad words you can imagine. This is a statement will throw you, even if you are a smart, compassionate father. If you ever heard that, you will lose your mind or your temper, totally. So this is the first shocking thing, is that he threw the statement. But the second shocking one is the reaction of the father. The father acted cool. He acted like a very rational guy. He's listening to the music, but actually he's listening to the most offensive. It's almost his son say, I wish you dead. I cannot wait to see you dead because the only thing I'm waiting is the inheritance. And when the story goes on and the father just simply go and say, this is the portion for your brother, this is the portion for you, you take the money, and he went away. And we know the story goes on as he took the money, he went to a different country, and then somehow he spent the money. As a young guy, he's not smart to his money, he wants to live his life. He thinks maybe this is the freedom, I can do whatever I do, I control the whole world. But he did not know that life can turn around and take all his privileges. And one day he will stand up naked from all these privileges. So when the famine happened, when the bad things happen, they are not happen at home, they happen in a foreign country. When bad things happen, it's enough that they are bad. But when they happen when you are far away from a land that you call home, from people that you know and recognize by their shape and their look, For a language that you can understand from just a whisper from a miles away, you can pick on the words and understand, because that's part of who you are. So this poor boy that you can easily judge him and say whatever you want to say, he's now struggling. He's part of the starving population. But the more powerful and painful, it happens in a foreign land. It happens in a land that really has nothing to do with his own religion, with his own culture. And that's the beauty of this parable, that even when he picked the kind of career, it's not kind of like, oh, he's a poor farmer, he's now act like a slave, but tells you he worked in the most disgusting thing for a Jewish person. It's not like what we think today about, oh, cute pigs, when we cuddle them and deal with them. For the Jewish tradition is the most unclean. Anything come close or associated with the pigs is against the religion. So this is not just a matter of poor, he's doing a very low job or very low income job. This is a job that hurt his soul and his tradition as a Jew. So from the story we gather that he was in a foreign land that has nothing to do with the Jewish tradition. What that mean? He's in the land of the Gentiles. He's taking care not only of pigs, but he's living among those who have nothing to do or understand about God. So this guy is really living his own shame, being away, being poor, but also being even away from his own tradition and his own spiritual. So as he's feeding the pig, and he looked at himself and say, I cannot even see myself that being fed and somebody took care of me, as we are hired to take care of these pigs. But then the key point when he comes to his sense, and there is millions of translation about what this means. Is it a moment of really repent? Is it a moment of rational? Is it a moment to be like, I've been stubborn and I was not smart. I should play smart now. So there are many ways that you can understand. Was it a deep, sincere repent, or was a smart tactic? We cannot know exactly, but he came to his sense and said, how many of my father hired? So he said, what's the worst thing? My father will accept me as a servant, but a servant in my father's house will be 1,000,000 times better than what I have. And the tricky thing that people can understand in a different way, when he made this wonderful speech, I have sinned against heaven and against you, and we goes on and on to the end. And many biblical scholars say, was this really kind of like a real repentance? Or this son became smart, I know this is the language that my father will like to hear. When I come and I cry, I'm going to act out and do all of these things. And what is the worst case scenario? My father will accept, let me act and live with many people that he is taking care of. So the good thing when he comes, if you go back and read the text again, when he started to tell his father, when he came back and father welcomed him, this the good thing that when he started to do his speech, if you go and read that, the father actually cut him off to finish his speech. He did not care much he cares about, my son is coming back to me. He saw him running and he ran into him. He did not care much about this. Maybe is this really a manipulation, or this was a true, honest thing. The father wants to show him that I love you. The God wants to show him that is not that much care about how many words coming out of your mouth. So the whole story, as many schools will try to translate, over-translate, what's the meaning of this word, and what's the meaning of this action, and what's the meaning of this. Really, the whole story is not just about the son or the older or the younger who are invited to the feast and not. The whole story is about God's love. So the writer of the story is not caring much about to make everybody in the center of the story, to show you God's love, the Father love toward both of them. And as we see that one of another culture thing that to understand that how many violation of the culture that's happened in this. When you hear the word that his father, when he saw him, he ran into him, that sounds cool, when we read it today, like that sounds somebody's really full of love and warm and he ran. But really when you put it in the culture context, it's very interesting to know that. And even as a young boy living in the Middle East, I can relate to that very much. So older people in our society is always, every moves is a sign of honor. You cannot just run or you cannot just go and do any of these things. And I imagine because we live in a culture that still depends on our body is our vehicles, so we didn't have motorcycles or bikes or cars these are saved only for big things, but most of our daily activities. So your body motion, if you are walking slowly than usual, that's a sign of something. If you are walking faster, and we know that you are a very well-respected man in the society, that's not expected. That means maybe there is a crisis. There could be a very big good news or very bad big, because these people are acting out of the normal. They are breaking the stereo, how you see them walking and the pace that they are walking in. All of this body language is understood because people are sitting there and watching who is sitting at home, who's walking slowly, who's walking faster. So for a man in his age and in his kind of power and respect and well-known in the society, to run like a child, that's like a mocking scene. It's a it's a scene that's maybe humiliating yourself. But this is to show you that this man was full of love, not to care about how people will see him. That make the story is more powerful and meaningful, that this father was full of love to the point where he is blind about, he does not care if his own community will shame him. He became above the culture. We all product of culture. We all product of what is right, what is wrong, what we can do and what we cannot do. But in this story that Christ say God's love just violate all the rules. God's love will not care about what you should do and should not do. God will do everything. God will violate all the rules to come to you and reach out to you. So this is the beauty of understanding the culture meaning of this, to even simple words like he ran into his son, how it meant in the story. And as he ran to his son, and we know the story, this is the good story. Started bad and ending good now, okay? But this is not the end of the story. The other part of the story we know about the son. The son who was working. And the story goes showing you that he's really, the older son is a hard worker. The older son, he was not just messing around. Even when he heard this difficult news about his father accepting, he was actually busy doing the father's job in the farm. So do not really put this guy in a bad category. He's a very good hard worker. He's a guy that even is not wasting any time. Even when he hears rumors about what happened in his own house, in his own family business, his hands are busy and doing the job. So he's a wonderful hard worker. Do not be quick to judge him and think of him. So and then he heard the story, he started to hear, and people are telling him, look, come, your father did this and that. And he gave the fat calf, and just like, this thing only saved for years. You feed the special calf it's not like a goat. And that's why when he talked and when he complained to his father and said, you didn't even give me a goat. So this big calf that's saved there, that's for the big wedding. For sometimes they do for years, raise this baby cow to just go and grow and saved for not just for any event. It's for a very, very special event. So this is You're not just celebrating him. You're not just having a small cake and a small candles and just blow the candles, You just slaughtered the most thing that we did for years, and we didn't even know what kind of event that will be worthy to sacrifice this big animal. And you are sacrificing for the most shameful thing. This guy who put our head in the sand, who really made us cannot even put, because we used to be powerful and rich and well respected in the community, and now everybody's looking at us and think that we are a messed up family. We are a messed up son when he asked to inherit the money before his father's death. We are a messed up family because the father is so easy and light and not smart. He is just throwing his love all right and left without thinking deeply. So this is the son that's standing saying, and here I am working very hard to try to restore, to rescue what's left from this wealth. And look what I got, and empty hands. What did I take? Nothing. I'm like your servant. So as we see the story goes on, and I wonder about which side you would like to take. Do you feel bad for the older son? Do you want to judge him and see that he did not understand his father? Or do you want to feel like this really the younger son does not deserve all these chances? He took a chances when his father was cool enough to accept his offense and gave him the money. And now he's coming back and celebrated as a king. Think about that, how many people, maybe this is not here, but as somebody who came from a foreign land like me, anytime we think about traveling somewhere, we're not traveling for fun. We're not going to live somewhere in a richer countries because we are happy for that. But the main point is to make money and go back after a year, 2, 10, and go back with wealth and come back and people feel, yes, you've been away for many years and you're coming back, and the whole community say, yes, this is the reward of living in a foreign land. But instead of that, this guy is coming back with too much shame. But God, his father, I keep saying God and father as that's the image in the story. So he's really showing that God's love is beyond your understanding. God's love is always around you and me, and we cannot understand that. But my concern, my warning, the words for you and for myself today, that the story did not end with a clear thing about who is wrong and who is right. The story ended with pure God's love and ended in an open end about who is the lost son in the story. Is really the lost son is the younger? Is really the lost son is the older because he did not understand how to enjoy all the privileges he lived in? And I am afraid that most of us really will belong to the older son and not the younger one. All the church people, including your pastor, those who come every Sunday, they have to do the job, we have to do many things. And how many times we lose the privilege to understand that coming to this house is not only to do the job. It's not only because I have to preach or Jan has to play music, Yeah, this is part of our responsibility. But how easily that day by day, because we got used to that we forgot to understand this day made for me too, as a person, not as the preacher. As a human being who is in need for that, to remind myself that every Sunday when I come here, yes, part of me is my job. Part of me is, this is my family. This is my father is reminding me, this is what you're doing. So the fear and the concern for all of us today, do not forget, as far as you come and you work very hard, you actually work hard because you love God, not because you are a slave. You do all the good things because you are waiting for the rewards and see who gets more, who gets less, and who gets nothing. You're actually doing that because your identity became mixed with your Father, who always full of love. And this is today, that's my concern for all of us. Do not live as the older son, Live as the younger one who understand that even when the days goes on in our life, remember, do not forget where you came from. Do not forget one day with all the stains and all the pain, God cleans us, and He continues to do that. Amen.
This is the time in our service where anybody in our congregation has a share they'd like to make, a praise, a prayer, a concern. I'll hand you the mic.
For my dad's birthday tomorrow.
For Father's birthday tomorrow.
Just for anyone who lost a loved one, we buried my aunt yesterday, and we have some friends who the